So most of you may know I'm a real estate photographer. I utilize drones to sort of put the cherry on top anytime I'm done with a listing. I was really curious about the Evo 8K and whether or not it was going to be suitable for the type of work that I do. So I spent the entire weekend using it on clients' homes. Stick around, we're talking about it today. What's good? Welcome back, guys. Ken here, you're watching Original Dobo, and this channel is totally dedicated to drone and tech content. So if you haven't already and you've been back here a few times, hit that subscribe button. Promise, I'm not the biggest asshole. If you stick around long enough, you may get to know me. All right, so this is the Evo II 8K. It's been out for a little while. Most of you probably already know that the pros are starting to trickle down into people's hands. I should have one in my hands very, very soon, so we'll test that out. But for now, we're still talking about the 8K. So I'll be completely honest, I wasn't very impressed with the log footage, and it had me a little bit worried and concerned that I may not be able to use this on houses that I do for clients. It also boasts a 48 megapixel sensor that renders very, very sharp photos, that I might add. They are incredibly difficult to edit. They are really difficult to edit, and Lightroom sort of wigs out when it's ingesting these 48 megapixel photos. But after it's all said and done and you get to edit them, they look absolutely stunning. So today I spent the morning working with the Evo II Dual, which is also basically an 8K but with the thermal sensor, doing some site scans. And then I also used the Evo II 8K working on some real estate properties this week. So I would be remiss to say that there aren't some issues that need to be rectified before this thing ends up into people's hands. So I don't want to start off totally bad, but I feel that we need to talk about a couple of things that I've noticed. First, there is some horizon tilt, and this poses a pretty large problem because at 26 millimeters on this lens, when I have to fix the tilt and crop in on it, I lose some real estate when I'm filming shots. The second thing is the control of the drone just seems a bit jerky to me. I noticed that the yaw isn't quite as smooth as the drones I'm used to flying, like the DJI Mavic 2 or the Mavic 2 Zoom, or even my Phantom 4 Pro. This seems a little bit more untamed. I guess that's the best way to put it. So I did find out that in the app, there's this thing called dual stability. So I'll have to try that on the next house to see how that works. But I shot 2 houses with this consecutively, and overall, the images look pretty solid. They're, I would say right on par with my Mavic 2 Pro as far as the standard profile goes. I did not use log profile, but there is also an HDR option on here, which I did use. Now, the one downfall to using HDR in a house is that you lose manual control of the camera, at least for video. I really didn't think that was a big deal, at least yesterday, because it was sort of a weird day. It was like periodically overcasty, and I wanted to try to maximize the best exposure I could while I was trying to get the video, and also try to match the camera up from this to my Sony, which it actually did a pretty good job of matching the color science. Now, there's one more issue that I have been noticing on the 8K, which is some softness and feathering around the edges of the image. Now, this could be blamed on one of two things. It could just be the sensor itself, or it could be the software. Now, yesterday I got a chance to talk to Gary, who's the president of Untitled Robotics, and I voiced my concerns. And no sooner than I started talking about these issues, he said, "Stop, I'm aware of this. We are working on a fix. We're going to have something in people's hands before, these start shipping from dealers." I said, "Great, but I have a few more concerns," and I went ahead and voiced them. And he was really concerned about it, and he ended up calling us back to get more information. He actually FaceTimed us, and we went over some of the concerns. And then this morning we had a rep from Altel out with us on a site scan, and they were gathering more information to make sure they firm up the firmware. Wow, that's a new one. But they want to make sure that the firmware is right before obviously it makes it into many people's hands. Unfortunately, this does mean the inevitable, a day one firmware update, but at least they're aware of it. So some of the things I'm talking about today, are going to be fixed. I avoided 8K and 6K like the plague because, like I said, when you shoot in the higher resolutions, you're not going to be able to maximize the entire sensor like you could in 4K 60s, which what I used today. So 26mm focal length does pose some challenges. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but the more I used it, I found myself having to pull the drone back a bit further, at least for the front shots of a house. I found myself over somebody else's property numerous times. Now, if you're a real estate photographer and you're using a drone, you're going to inevitably find yourself over somebody's property. Now, depending on whose house you're flying over, this may be a big deal or it may not be a big deal. If you saw my video on how to film real estate, you know for that lady, it was a really, really big deal and I wasn't even over her house. So luckily, nothing like that happened yesterday. Although you probably saw in this video, I did park in front of somebody's mailbox and she did give me an earful about that, to which I applied, go fuck yourself, no mail is good mail. Seriously, that's what I told her. All in all, I think it did decent enough to be a good backup drone. I still love my MAVIC 2 Pro for real estate. I'm going to have to test the MAVIC 2, or I'm going to have to test the Evo II Pro to see if that will supersede this, which I'm pretty certain it absolutely will. But I just wanted to see if somebody bought this and for the time being, could you actually use this professionally? The short answer, like I said, is yes, with some caveats. Now, for doing site scans, this thing works really well because that 48 megapixel sensor really gives you a lot of detail. And if you're higher up in altitude, you can really showcase the detail of a roof. And the Evo Mission app is absolutely phenomenal. It's like Drone Deploy, but built into the Evo app, and it's free. Now, it doesn't do any of the stitching for you. You would have to utilize a secondary program to do that, but it's pretty solid for free and it worked pretty damn flawless. And you can adjust all of your configurations and settings right from within the app. And it took maybe about 10-15 minutes to scan the rooftop of this building today, which I thought was pretty fantastic. But the photos, I think the photos came out great. I'll go ahead and drop some raw files of this house I shot if you guys want to try to edit them for yourselves. Now, I shot these files in 3 auto bracketed exposures. I do 3 because then I can just pick and choose which one I like, and then I just edit one of them. Sometimes I may blend them together, but often I find myself just picking one of the brackets and using that to edit the photo down. Now, standard disclaimer, I did replace the sky on those because it was a pretty wishy-washy day, so don't think that that's the dynamic range of the drone, but that's just the capability that you have when editing these files. I want you just to pay attention to the sharpness and the detail and the clarity of the photo more than anything, because that's important on photos. Now, there seems to be also a common misconception that sharper video is better, and that's absolutely false. You guys got to get that mindset out of your heads immediately, because sharper video renders much more noise and makes things look digital and fake, which in turn just gives your videos a shitty look. So that's one of the reasons why I have leaned heavily on my MAVIC 2 Pro, because it does have, I don't know, for lack of better words, a filmic look. I forgot who said it. I think Adam Grumbo said it in his video, that the MAVIC 2 Pro does have a very filmic look, and it's true. And I'm not saying that the Evo 2's look isn't bad, it's just not quite my style, and everybody's style may vary, and that's the beautiful thing about video and photos. But hopefully this video helps. I'm gonna continue to keep taking deep dives into these drones as I get both sensors in hand. Actually, I have all 3 of the drones available, from the Dual to the Pro to the 8K. So we'll compare them all. I'll include some thermal samples as well if you're interested in that drone. I have a full video coming on that, because that drone really impressed the hell out of me for you guys that are interested in site scans and thermal. All right, so that's gonna do it. I will be doing the obstacle avoidance test very soon, so bear with me. I am trying to crank out a tremendous amount of client videos, and this just sort of coincided with what I was already doing. Until next time, guys, as always, stay original.